it's good to be here every day. Let's put it that way. I'm going to keep this short for a number of reasons. One, he asked me to. I met Pat Flannery in 1989 when he was hired to coach the Lebanon Valley College men's basketball team. And on a personal note, we hit it off immediately because I knew a few things about this left-handed kid from Columbia named Mike Whistler, who he, am I correct, recruited or helped recruit to Drexel.
To Drexel.
And that was kind of the beginning of a friendship, of a wild ride that extends to this day. I'm going to keep this short. One of the reasons is because I could listen to Pat talk all day about just about anything. And he would talk to you all day, just about anything, but only about something he had convictions in and believed in. In other words, he wouldn't try and sell you something that he wouldn't do himself or truly believe in. He coached Lebanon Valley College's men's basketball team to the national championship in 1994, which was just an amazing experience. He led Bucknell University to an upset of Kansas, a national power at the time, in the first round of the NCAA tournament in the 2005 season, and achieved great success as a men's basketball coach at the Division I level as well. Pat is from Pottsville, and I say that because he's definitely an old school guy, which I think is good and pretty cool. And yet, if you would have told me in 1989 that he would be talking to a group about compensating athletes at the collegiate level for what they do, I would have told you you were full of that. But I heard him speak about it a few weeks ago at a Hall of Fame dinner, and I get it. I get it now. I really do, and I never thought I would get it that way. And that's why he's part of the reason here today to talk a little bit about name, image, and likeness. And I know for sure if he could get me money for my image and my visage, he'd be selling you something. So it's a privilege to introduce my friend Pat Flannery.
Thanks, Scott. Thank you very much. Well, I guess it's appropriate that I'm at a Rotary meeting. I grew up in Pottsville, Pennsylvania, and my favorite place in the world was the Pottsville Rotary Little League. So I've been involved in service-oriented in towns like Pottsville my whole life, my family. So your work and your attendance and all the things that you do, I tell you, is very much appreciated by so many people. The reason I brought up the Little League is, Scott threw me a curveball today with a changeup, and it might even been a knuckleball. So when he invited me to come and speak, he told me, Coach, you'll have all these high school kids from the local high schools. Well, I don't think anybody in here is in high school. I've looked around here, and I don't see any of you. I think some of us have attended a few years ago. With that being said, I do think that you make something out of this, and part of my conversation is about this NIL. But I wanted to tell you something else, especially for folks that are here, that I miss my parents. They're both gone, and I love being able to talk to folks about their experience, about who they are, where they are, because we all have a story. But Scott, I do appreciate you inviting me down today. I really do enjoy it. I enjoy meeting new people, and I bet you I meet some new friends today. One of the things I wanted to tell you that I think would be confidence builder for us as we go back home and we think about this today with everything that's going on in our world and all the things we have. I would end today, if I was talking to those kids, by making sure they know what a unbelievable country we live in and what people are doing. I say all that to you because when I do talk to kids and when I do go somewhere, some of the conversation for me would be things like this. I would ask the kids, first of all, what grades they're in. I would ask students what kind of languages they studied, how many years. I would ask them if they knew how to drive a lawnmower or use a lawnmower. I would ask kids if they visited their grandparents recently. I would ask them about what church they belong to, if they have faith. I would ask kids about what sports teams, and I'd also ask them if they stay up on current events. I'm saying that all to you, to this group here today, because I want to make sure that I leave here and that you know how much faith and how much belief and how many good people are out there with our kids. Because there really is wonderful things that are going on. I've been in education my whole life. And because of the things that we read and we see, I think sometimes we really have to make sure we remind people and remind each other that there's a whole lot of really good things going on. And that's what I would tell these kids, and I would challenge them to do the same, and to understand that they have everything in front of them and that they have the opportunity here. So I say that with true heart, that I stand up here with you, that's the message, that's the things that I talk about wherever I go and what I do. Now, Scott asked me, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the NIL, but let me tell you a little bit about who you're speaking to and who's in front of you today, since I do have the pulpit here. I grew up in Pottsville. I was a 3-sport athlete. I went on to Bucknell, played 2 sports there. Very fortunate to be athletics was my life. I wasn't a great student. I'm sure Bucknell has been investigated for even letting me in. But I did get in up there, and I had people that picked me up. The thing that fascinates me is I had six siblings. I was the only one to go to college. So my family has always put me on a pedestal, because I graduated from college, because I played ball. And I ended up actually graduating with some honors. I learned how to study, and I did fine. But I say that because I was always the golden child in my family. And I was always the person that my mom and dad, when I come home, Pat's home. And, I stand here before you. I have 5 brothers and sisters who are the most amazing people in the world. I can't do squat for myself. I've never painted. I don't do electric. I don't do anything. I have 5 brothers and sisters that are just absolutely amazing. They do ironworks. That they have one of them sister has a company. They service to the community. They do all those things. I say all this because, again, the message to this is that there's so many ways that we can go with the things that we do, that I try to encourage kids, everyone, to make sure you're happy with what you're doing and to go after. And that's what the message I would say with them today is to be happy. I think that's important because we sometimes get too full of what we do. We think we're doing it when the reality is that we have people all around us. And you have picked up so many people along your line. I want to pick up people as I go, and we should continue to encourage and to move this forward and to pay it forward. And I really think that that's a calling, and that's a thought I have, as you do with your clubs and being here today. I have a beautiful wife of 34 years. She's been my rock, and she's put up with a lot. The coaching is crazy. I have a 28-year-old boy who went to Johns Hopkins, who we thought was into health and all, and he announced to us a number of years ago it's not what he wants to do. He wants to be a basketball coach. So he's up. He was at Army, and now he's at Bucknell, and he loves it. He's doing well. And I have a jazz musician who just finished entrepreneurial entertainment in Wisconsin. So he'll end up something here, although he's not coming back to the area. He'd be like a Rock Lidditz. He'd run something like that, or a Hershey Theater. So he's very, very talented. I've had about 28 jobs in my career, and I always get people look at me and go, oh, and the kids laugh, and usually when I'm talking, and what I say but for that is, whether it was being a tree surgeon or an extruder operator or a paper boy or whatever I would be in my life, no, I wasn't fired from all of these. I just always had an interest in these things and trying to learn. I was never really good at the mechanical stuff, but I always tried to learn things. And if you were standing up here, I hope you're reflecting on how many different things that you've done in your lifetime and where you've had influence and what you've learned and what you've done, because I think it's important. But I'll tell you this, whatever we do, and before I talk a little bit about the NI, I just wanted to leave you. I'd be remiss if I didn't leave you and make sure that if you mentioned my name, Flannery, that you knew who I was and what I was about, because I do have some some street cred in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware. They wouldn't know me out in the West. But around here and in the area, I do, because they've been around a long time. And athletics has a tendency to put us in the paper and do those things so some people would know. But the greatest thing for me is these relationships that I've had over the years. For any of you that have coached, I'm sure some of you have coached Little League, maybe high school or whatever. The greatest thing for me is relationships. So I wanted to tell you one story. Scott's heard this before. When I was at Bucknell, I had a young black kid from Wilkinsburg, PA, by the name of J.R. Holden. He's now the general manager of the New Jersey Nets. I had another young man that's now the associate head coach of the Boston Celtics, Charles Lee. They played for me during school. So J.R. and I, his 4 years, got very close, and obviously we had some, as you do, we had some issues in the sense of J.R. got to get to class, help him grow up like somebody did with us. I actually had to go to his dorm 2 times for drive-by shootings in Pittsburgh where he lost relatives. So we became very close. Fast forward, I'm down the shore. I'm retired. I'm at that time probably about 60, 62. I'm down the shore. No, yeah, probably. I was younger than that. That was when I first retired from coaching. And JR calls. He had just hit the winning shot for Russia to beat Spain to go to the Olympics. Now think about this. A black kid from Pittsburgh. Putin had to make him a citizen. He hit the winning shot against Spain to go to the Olympics in where? Beijing. JR says, Coach, I'm sending a car for you. You're going with me. I said, go where? Now, this is a kid from Pennsylvania. I've traveled, but I've been to all the states. I've traveled around, but I'm still a Central PA guy. So I go to Beijing, China for 2 weeks with the Russian delegation as a Central PA basketball coach because of a relationship I had with a kid that I recruited when he was 17 years old. Now, how does that get like that? Now, there'll be people that are crushers that will say he played for Russia. That kid would have played for the local Y if you put a basketball in his hand. He was just a basketball nut. I say that to you because they're the experiences that has led me to where I'm at today and what I'm doing today. Gang, I was retired living in Hershey. We moved from Lewisburg. So we live up in the Palmyra, Hershey area. And I was helping over at Milton Hershey, which is a pretty neat place with some really neat place with some good people. And those kids are just unbelievable. I was doing a little bit of work with Commonwealth. All of this was consulting, retirement kind of thing. So I got a phone call from, again, a young man that played for me, Mike Rhodes. Mike Rhodes was our captain on that 94 championship team. Well, if any of you ever coached or you have, your relationships with your families and your kids, when kids ask you something, you do anything for them, and we should. And hopefully my kids will do the same thing that I've done for them, and your kids will do for you. That's what makes this world so wonderful. So Rhodes calls me, and he says to me, Coach, I just took a job at Penn State University as their head men's basketball coach. Now I've been out of it for about 10 years, but my son's in it. And I'm at a lot of practices. I go around and I put things in for different schools. One of my best friends in the world I went to school with, got him his first, is Jay Wright at Villanova. So I've been at Villanova a lot. I've been at Maryland a lot, particularly when Turgeon was there. So Mike says, Coach, I need somebody I trust up here that would come up here and be honest with me. I don't need somebody telling me what we're doing. I need somebody that's going to tell me really the truth. And you've always been truth with me. I coached him, like I said. His dad was a state senator, Jim Rhodes, if any of you remember, real popular guy. Mike lost him a number of years ago. So Mike says, I need somebody I can trust. I said, well, Mike, I'm retired. I'm living in Hershey. Penn State's 2 hours away. I don't know if this is going to work. I talked to my wife. My wife, about a week later, says, hey, I got a call from Coach Rhodes. I said, oh, you got a call from Coach Rhodes, huh? Well, he's absolutely a great recruiter. So he knew who to go to. He went to the boss, and she always loved him. So she's like, Pat, you should really think about that. Like, you could bring a lot to them. Oh, babe, we're living down here. We love it. We're golfing at Fairview. We're living large. Mike says, can I come and visit you? I see. Now we're going to get the visit. So Mike comes down and visits me. We talk, and Mike says to me, Coach, I need somebody I can trust, somebody that will help me in the basketball, because he knew that was my pull. and he knew I had done some development work at Bucknell. And he said, by the way, Coach, if you could help me, we have this NIL going on, this paying the student athletes to play. And it's not going away. It's going to be here. So then that was the second part of this catch. So he drugged me in with the basketball, and I love it, and then threw me over to this NIL development, which I've done for a while, and that's how I ended up at Penn State. So that's how I'm standing here to you today, 67, and as we are standing here, I will promise you, I will tell you, when I leave here today, this weekend, next week, every day I say to myself, what am I doing? Like I should be golfing, but I still have energy. I still enjoy it. I love this kid that's up there. They gave him a 7-year contract, so he's going to be there. He loves Central PA. So I've been out all over the state, all over the East Coast, really helping them build the Penn State basketball model, culture, friendship, every part that we can, and it's been a blast. I traveled with them all year. So whether it's Minnesota, Nebraska, Iowa. Matter of fact, one time we went to Iowa, I didn't even know my wife was going on the trip, and he had called her to take her on the trip so that she saw what I did, so I would come up a little bit more. So they're pretty smart people that are out there. The question that Scott brought up, and what you might be interested in, if I could leave you as anything other than what I was telling you about to give you the confidence about people talking to our kids, is this NIL that is going on. It's called name, image, and likeness. And what really, where it all happened is I don't know how else to be. Coaches, athletic directors, people across the country were making so much money, $7 million contracts. I mean, this kid I'm talking to you about, he would have went to Penn State probably for $250, a case of Yingling, and some pierogies from Mrs. T's, and he probably would have went up to Penn State. They give the kid $26 million for 7 years to coach college basketball. The athletic director is obviously making money too. So you're going to take it if they're going to offer you, but that's where this got out of hand. They were making so much money, coaches and athletic directors in athletics, that they came up with this idea that why shouldn't the kids benefit from it? Well, I always thought they did. With scholarships, they get a per diem and all. So lawyers, agents, everybody got involved in this. And where it went is they said, oh, I have an idea. Let's reward the kids in the communities, and we'll pay them money to go out and speak and to be in engagement. All things we used to do as volunteers, to go to the elementary school to talk to them. Well, now these kids are getting paid for that. So what was supposed to be all of this commercial business stuff has turned into each school now has a contracts with these players, football and basketball particularly, and you sign a contract that you're going to play at that school, and they're going to pay you X amount of dollars. Student athletes, not every. So if you have a swimmer or you have somebody that's wrestling or all wonderful sports, it is not filtered to all the students. Don't think that for a second. Don't think they're all getting paid. With that being said, it's here, it's not going away, it's going to be part of the culture. You're going to hear NIL, you're going to hear that continually. The part that has really, really, I think, upset college athletics, that's really hurt, is this transfer portal, where they're allowing kids to be able to just move from school to school. And the reason I say that is, the word I use is that student athletes' contracts, you pay them, that's a transaction, right? You pay somebody, you have certain expectations. So where is this going to stop if the kid doesn't score 15 points or doesn't show up for practice or I don't know where this is going to stop. So that's a transaction. What I loved about sports, and thank goodness I'm where I'm at, and I'm not the head coach, is, to me, athletics was always transformative. I told you the story about J.R. Holden, and I could stand up here and tell you the stories in the weddings I've been at in Nova Scotia or England or whatever, because of the relationships I have with the kids. I hope to God we don't lose that relationship, but I do see kids now that come to practice that they're getting paid. They're getting money when they come into practice. So the challenge for Mike and for these modern day coaches is to be able to keep a balance between paying these kids their contracts and also keeping a culture within your program that they're playing for the love of the game. Now, I think it's going to level off, and there's going to have to be some stipulation on what we're paying them. The other thing if you're not into this and you don't know what I'm talking about, I would have to start from the beginning. But if you do understand a little bit that they're now paying student athletes, if you read the sports page or you read E3NI or any of those publications, and they say somebody's getting $1 million to play for Indiana, just think twice about if they're really getting that money or if these numbers are being thrown around are unreal. It's like a lot of our news. It's just not right. It's not what's the truth. It's not even close to the truth with some of the money that they're saying that these kids are getting. But you'll read that they're getting a certain amount of money. They are getting some money. So saying all of that and telling you that is that I jumped into this. Scott said he heard me talk the other night. I had a group of pretty aggressive ex-coaches and athletic directors that were there. And they were saying stuff to me like that they just couldn't believe this was going on. And so it was a robust conversation and one that I had to get after, because if they don't do this and you don't take care of these kids, you won't have a Division I program. And if any of you are Penn State football fans or whatever, if they're not paying those kids, you won't have a football team. So right now at a place like Penn State with football, they're probably, in their student athletes across their roster, they're probably paying somewhere around $9 million for their student athletes. Now, that means every one of them getting something in a contract. In basketball, again, you got to watch this stuff publicly, but in basketball, it's maybe 1.5 or some area like that, where each of the kids is getting something. There you go. So you say, well, where does this money come? Well, this money is not coming from revenue. It's coming from people that are out there, that are working, that love the school, that want to be part of a program. We started a coaches circle. That's how we got our money this year. This thing is going to change a little bit. I think it's going to go in-house. It's not in athletics right now. There's a firewall. So this is all these collectives that are outside of athletics. The litigation and all the lawsuits and all, they're suing for everything that happens. There's the rules in the NCAA right now are non-existent. If you have a kid and he doesn't like something, they sue and the NCAA gives in. They change the bylaws. May 1st, the portal was supposed to change. You weren't supposed to be able to transfer. One kid wants to transfer and they say the portal's closed. All he's going to do is sue and they're going to open the portal. They're not going to do it. There's just no teeth to it right now. And that has to do, gang, like anything with leadership. The leadership has to get better and they have to make some tough decisions. I say this to all you today, whether you're sports fans or not. There are people in all of these walks and all of these areas that are doing the things the right way. I think we have unbelievable people up at Penn State doing the right way. I think Rhodes is phenomenal. I think, I don't know Franklin that well. I think he runs a great program. A guy by the name of Pat Kraft is the athletic director. I really enjoy him. So I think there's people doing the right thing. Sometimes their hands are a little bit tied. But if you don't go forward and you don't get on board with some of these, or you sit there and say, I could just see, God love him, my father sitting here trying to explain NIL to my father. That would be something you'd want to see. But I eventually say to him, Dad, they're doing it, and you either get on board or you don't. So with that being said, I have great. What would I say? Great respect. I have my feeling for people that have given me these opportunities and have coached me and taught me are my greatest role models other than my parents. And I think that's something, whether it's in the band or whether it's in theater or whatever these kids are doing, I think that's where we get our strength. And that's where we get what we're going to do going forward. And I would challenge them to be the best that they can be. The thing I was going to start with, and the thing that I would end with, and I promise you everywhere I go, we live in the greatest country in the world. I would say to them, much like their parents and grandparents, they're our greatest resource, these kids. We got to stop. We can't talk to them without trying to educate them and making them see what the good things are that are going on, and not constantly diving into things that we can control what we can control. We can do the best that we can. The NIL world is one that's changing constantly. If you have an interest in it, get on somewhere and read about it a little bit, because it will change daily. But the part for me being up here in front of you today is I was a student athlete. I was a kid in Pottsville who ran the streets of Pottsville. I would say that I'm sure, like many of you, we all got in our share of trouble, but we had people that looked out for us, people that raised us up. I'm here today to thank you personally, and all that you've done in your lifetimes. There's there's people here there's older people, there's people my age, there's probably a few younger people here, but I would never leave without saying a thank you, because I don't know where I'd be without the guidance and the respect that people have shown me and been able to help me with. Bucknell was a big institution of mine. Lebanon Valley certainly was. I was also at Drexel. I was at William and Mary as well. I coached down there. And I mentioned those 28 jobs because they were things that I thought you should try everything. And that's what I would try to encourage all of these kids, the relatives you have, the younger people there, to ask them to keep trying things. I think everybody tries to think that, when I see it, my wife and I work with all these young people, that they think because they're coming out of school that they're set for whatever they're doing and it's singular in where direction. It's great to have those goals. It's great to have that ambition, but they should also continue to try to do things that are going to stretch them and going to push them a little bit. Before I close up, is there, I said a lot about NIL. Again, I don't know who all I'm talking to, gang. So I don't really know what your extent is of that. Is there any questions in saying that something didn't hit right, or something that I can expand on? To please let me know. I'm sorry. Sorry, ma'am.
So when the students do get paid, and they want to go into the portal, how long is their contract for? Like a year or?
Wow. Where are you from? You're right on top of this.
I went to Penn State.
That's a great question.
I mean,
wow.
How long is the contract for?
Yeah.
When they go to the portal?
Great point. Here's what's happening.
The other school paid for a new contract.
How about that?
That's pretty good.
What it is you sign a contract. Let's say it's June to July. Football's a little different. We're June to July. Let's say June to June. You're right, though. What had happened, and they had to tighten this up, is a kid would sign a contract, and he'd get to a certain point at that school, and he'd play that season, and then they'd pay him his last contract. Let's say it was June to April, because the season was over. They'd take their money, jump in the portal, and then they go to a new school. So they tighten that up, and now it's 12 months. So now it goes into that point where it's a 12-month, and it goes over 12 months. So take this one step further. They can't take money from there and go to another school and have another contract. But the question that also comes into play with that is, how do these kids get paid? Well, each month, there's not a set date that they get a set of money. There's the money that they get. They have to do certain things. For instance, an engagement would mean something we all did. We talked to the local elementary school. Well, for an engagement that they get now, they get $10,000 for an engagement. If a kid has a $100,000 contract, that means obviously he has to do 10 engagements over the course of the year. So he might have to shelf fruit at a pet store. He might have to go speak somewhere. The other way they get paid is social media and posting, which is a big thing. So they can get money that way. So, and there's two ways. There's commercial money, and then there's 501c3s. But there's not a whole lot of benefits from the 501c3. But to your question is, these contracts, which is interesting, has always been one way. It's been with the kids. Protect the kids, protect the kids. That's the way it's always been. Well, now as they start these lawsuits, and you saw Dartmouth wants to unionize, and the kids want to get all this, they better be careful, student athletes, and what they do with this, because if they become employees of the university, that changes the dynamics of what you're doing with student athletes. Because now student athletes are going to be held accountable. And if you don't go to class, or you don't come to practice, or you have a contract. You have a written contract. So it's in a really interesting time right now with these contracts. The other thing, since you asked with the contracts, which I find fascinating, how about giving, football has 90 kids, but how about take basketball? How about giving 13 kids a contract and saying there's a stipulation that it's a non-disclosure to 13 kids that are 18 and 19 and 20 years old, a non-disclosure. How long do you think it is until one tells the other one how much he's making over a glass of wine or a Yingling? These kids all know what each other's making, and they talk to each other at the other schools too, and say, they told me they were going to do this, but they haven't paid me. Well, that kid's gone. He leaves that school. That's why you see kids jumping to schools to school. So I guess I could say I'm an optimistic person. I want to be part of the solution. I guess I could throw hands up and said it's absolutely an S storm, and it's a mess right now. But hopefully, with some leadership, we can clean up. I'm sorry, did I answer your question? Okay, I kind of it was such a great question. I felt like I had another part to this. I'm sorry.
So I guess I don't know much about the implementation, but when this first started getting talked about, the one thing that I took notice of was like the example of the video game, where you have kids or student athletes, I should say, like being represented in that video game,
Right.
With the names on the back, and they're
Yep.
essentially using their
Name,
names.
image, and likeness.
And,
Yep.
But who was and they weren't getting money for that. Like they were having their name prior to this. They were having their name and likeness used, but weren't getting any. Where did the money go? Rather than to that kid, where was the money? Who was being paid for that instead of the student athlete?
Well, more so at one point, it was about promoting programs and building programs. So if you did that with a kid in a school, you got instant advertisement, marketing, and all that. But that money wasn't going to there wasn't money going to the school. That name, image, and likeness is how this all started. But think about how many kids are going to be able to do the name, image, and likeness who are actually going to make money. There's not. We don't have one kid. I bet you can't tell me one kid at Penn State, unless you were a fan of that. That was the name of a kid that we have that plays up there. You probably can't tell me one kid. And there's many like that. What happens is somebody is sensational. There's a young lady that was in gymnastics, the young lady that was in Iowa. Then you have a quarterback at Georgia. And yeah, they're making money with that name on the back, and now they're being paid. But you asked before that, when they were doing that, nobody was getting paid. They were companies that were getting people to do things. Now, there were some stipulations about what you could put on. Like a school wouldn't let you put their name on the front. The kid might do that for advertising. Now he gets paid for that. So is that a good thing? Yeah, he gets paid for that. But when you're talking about before that, the school wouldn't put it on the front without getting marketing money.
So the school was getting money
Well, if they had their name on it, yeah. If their name was on it, that's what they were. And that's the problem with this. Everything was funneled into the school, into the athletics, and finally, folks said, "Wait a second, everybody's making money, but the kids." Now the kids are making some money, but where is it going to stop? Is I think the question that everybody's trying to answer. I think it should get tied into academic incentive. I think everything should get tied back to academic incentive. That is, you're progressing. So freshmen should have a pot. If you become a sophomore and you stay, you get a bigger pot. If you're a sophomore and you're a junior, you get and progress it that way. But there is no way that it's going to go away. There's too much money that people are making. I get a call every day, or not every day. That's an exaggeration. I get a call 2-3 times a month. 2 or 3 times a month. Any of you that are entrepreneurial in here, somebody found something that they want to sell us because of the student athletes, that they think the student athletes can make money, and they can make money. So these kids that are doing these contracts, you asked about the contracts, these agents, they're taking sometimes 15-20% of the kid's contract. And the kids and the families don't even realize they're just giving that money away because there's a money grab. But one of the things I mentioned or said about that, imagine this is happening now. For any of you that post or you're on social medias and all, there'll be a kid coming out as a junior in high school, not just basketball, football, wrestling, whatever it be. He's coming out and he or she, a really good player. So there's a company that will get them to sign up with them, and they'll tell them what schools are they interested in. So let's say they're interested in 4 schools, Penn State, Michigan, Clemson, Notre Dame. So they'll put that on a social site, and they'll tell the people at the school, they have all kinds of ways to get the students, and they can social post it. A student can go on that site because they want this recruit so bad and because they're sports nuts. They'll go in there for $1, they'll hit a like. So every time they hit a like, they pay $1 through whatever the app is. They're not getting my money, but whatever they do, they have an app that they use. When that kid finally decides what school he's going to go to, the money that came from that app will go to that school, to those 4 schools, the monies that came from that app. And there's sometimes a lot of money because there's a lot of kids at these universities that will hit the like because they love sports. That's a group that found a way to be able to get into this money that's going on with these kids. And you would have never believed it if you thought about something like that. Then when the kid goes there, that school goes to that money and now they have NIL money to get started. So that's one of the little examples of the way people are finding ways to be able to collect it, to collect some of this money. Sir, I'm sorry.
You mentioned 12-month contract.
Yeah.
Why don't the schools say, look, we'll give you this money, but we want a 24-month contract?
A 24-month contract.
So that, at the end of his freshman year,
Yeah.
I get a better offer here.
Wow. Yeah. I've only ever,
Professional athletes have.
yeah, and that's where we're headed. Yeah.
Why doesn't the school say this?
I guess a great question, and I'm going to ask somebody that because I've only known of 12-month contract because of the school year. Everything's tied into the school year. But I imagine somebody would say, well, if you do that, then it's professional. Well, we're professional now. So don't use that as an excuse to what you just said. I don't have that answer. That's a great, make it 48 month. I mean, and keep them there.
We hear that coaches have to be continually recruiting their students just to keep them.
That's again, you obviously are one of the people in here that has read a lot about this. That is a constant battle. Can you imagine for any of you that either yelled at your kids or coached or did anything that how delicate it is? I've seen where somebody gets on a kid or he doesn't play that game and he can come in the next day and he says, I'm leaving, I'm going to the transfer portal. Whereas, like I said, well, here's an example. Do any of you watch the basketball playoffs? Anybody? Okay, a couple people. Well, I say this, I know I'm being taped, so I better be truthful. I have a young man that's the associate, I told you, head coach of the Boston Celtics. You'll see him sitting there. His name's Charles Lee. Hopefully he gets his shot next year. Charles was standing there. He would concur and he would completely agree with me. When I got him as a freshman, we were in California. He was all tournament as a freshman. 6'4", good-looking kid, black kid from down in D.C. We come back from there and he has like 4 D's and an F at Bucknell. And I'm like, Charles, this isn't going to cut it. Yeah, but at that time and still now, I could have used him second semester, and then he would have been out of school. He would have been somewhere else. He wouldn't have been at Bucknell. So imagine nowadays I say to him, Charles, we do 2 things. Either you can stay with me, and you're going to practice every day. You're going to bring your grades in, or you can leave. These are the 2 things. But you're not playing here at Bucknell second semester. I'll give the kid all the credit in the world. That kid stayed, 2 times MVP. 3 times Dean's List, and went on to play, was with the Spurs. Then he went overseas and played, came back. He was with Goldman Sachs for a little bit, and now he worked his way college to pros. He's now going to be a head coach in the NBA. That would have never happened. Now, again, I'm not saying that for me. I'm not trying to boast with that. I'm just saying you can't coach kids like that anymore because that kid would have been gone in a heartbeat. He would have. Matter of fact, even in our senior banquet, his parents were kind of like, we had to make this decision. Well, the parents were mad at me that I sat the kid. So my coaches had to grab me from saying something to them. But they're the kind of things that I just hope we don't miss out on because I thought that was so important when we were coaching. So please, guys, please. I hope this isn't boring you all. I hope I'm giving you a little bit of this, but this has been my world. And Scott saying this NIL, you're right, Scott. If anybody would ever say, because like many of you that are sitting here, I can't say I believe in any of it. But your kid comes to you and asks you, I've learned it, I understand it, it's going to work, it's going to keep going. So I'm sorry.
So speaking of re-recruiting your roster, Coach had to rebuild his roster when he came out.
Yeah.
And he brought Ace Balls in there.
Right.
Now, he could go anywhere he wants to play. So
You're absolutely right.
able to get enough NIL to keep it?
So thank you. So what we're talking about, and again, I have to be careful with this, but I'm in an intimate group, and this is my guy here, so I want to be honest with you. I won't give you the numbers, but I'll be honest with you. Ace Baldwin, he came from VCU to Penn State. He came when Coach changed jobs, and Ace is the best player we have. He was Defensive Player of the Year in the Big Ten. So he has one more year left to school, and he's going to graduate now, so he'll be able to go to graduate school. So at the end of the year, we're paying him, let's say 60% of what he could make on, quote, is terrible, open market, but 60% of we're paying him what he could make. So schools like Kansas and Kentucky come in, and they almost double what we were paying them to be able to go, because we don't have that kind of money. But some of these schools do. They have people that share that with them. So we've sat for a month and a half, not sure what the young man's going to do. And remember, this is a kid that has the relationship with the head coach that came with him. So this is his boy, and the kid's a great kid. But he comes from East Baltimore. They have nothing. I mean, they have nothing. And so twice of what he made at Penn State would set them up for life. I mean, it would set them up for a long time, especially if you knew their background. So now the young man has to make a decision. Does he stay there for that? Because we're not going to change the value of it. Or does he go and play? And he's coming back. He's coming back to Penn State. So what are we proud of? Well, we're proud that we established a culture. He knows we're going to take care of him. It's the biggest alumni base in the country. So we had to get back to telling his family and these kids, what are you going to do with your future? So we have to convince them that we're going to help them with, which we've always done. Every program I've been in is the job market. What are you going to do next? Lifetime friendship, all those things that matter. Gang, I hope that these things keep mattering to these kids and that it isn't just transaction, or college athletics is going to be a mess. Yeah.
I know this is hypothetical, but if Joe Paterno was sitting here, do you think you could convince him that this is a good idea?
I think he would have done what Lou Saban and Jay Wright did. I think he would have got out of it. Because if you came to me right now and gave me all the money in the world to coach, I wouldn't coach. I mean, but I don't have that mentality. Mike, I keep saying, if you ever get the chance and you go to a game, introduce yourself to Mike Rhodes. Really, I mean that. Just a Central PA guy, down to earth, and he's a modern day CEO. I mean, he talks 1 minute about the NIL, then he has to talk next about redoing the portal, bringing up a whole new squad. I will say with that behind us, that first year, what Coach mentioned about with this was when he came there was nobody there, no players at Penn State last year. There was 2 kids that stayed who weren't really didn't ever play. 3 kids, I forgot, that never played. So he had in 40 days build a roster to play in the Big Ten. Finished 500, some big wins. Really, they did a great job. The coaches did a great job with them. Now this year, having the whole year, he has 5 kids back. They're pretty good players. They all started at one time. 5 kids back, 4 freshmen, which is really critical because freshmen's a whole different story. Recruiting those guys, they're in such a bad spot. Good freshman players because everybody's in the portal. And then we have 4 kids from the portal. So that's a nice balance of your roster. So you're going to lose 5 next year, but you're going to have some kids that have experience. So you're building that out. But that's another part of this that is so complicated that you have to. But like I said, it's the old days of coaching and keeping your head down, graduating kids, getting them jobs, dealing with parents, all those things. They're a small part of what these guys are doing now with this NIL. Yes, ma'am.
I can appreciate the fact that the kids are no longer going to be exploited for the name of each other.
Good word.
However, it seems like it's now about the money, not about the love of the game, the family environment,
I'm with you.
mentorship, the education.
Yep.
It's like more about. Am I thinking of that wrong?
That's everything I spoke about today. That's exactly the transaction as far as transformational. It used to be that family, jobs, all that. I worry it's now transaction. And the trend.
Which is hard on the kids, we're talking 17, 18, 19-year-olds.
Yeah.
They're still kids.
Yeah.
They don't have that maturity in that.
Yeah. And many of the kids, again, I can't speak for everybody in here, but I had 2 loving parents. We didn't have a whole lot with 6 kids. I mean, I grew up with 1 toilet. I never saw a shower until I went to the YMCA at 6. But I'm not crying as much. I loved it. I grew up in the east side of Pottsville like a kid. Some of these kids truly come from absolutely, I mean, you would want to give them the shirt off your back, but that's not all of them. And that's some of them. There's another part to this, since you brought it up, when you look at what do these kids do with their money? That's a whole different, think about the cats that are trying to get them. I mean, there's some really reputable, very good banks that are putting in educational systems that are trying to recruit the colleges so your kid knows. There's kids, now fortunately we have a guy that's an accountant, but I know for a fact I have friends that there's kids that don't even know they have to pay taxes on this. Wait till they get hit with their taxes. And they're in central Arkansas. And somebody told them how much they made, and they say, yeah, you're up in that high tax bracket. What tax bracket? And that's happening. That's happening across the country. Or they're saying they're going to send money home. Are they really sending money home? And is it the right way? And are they doing it? Because I've seen it where kids don't even eat some of the stuff that they provide from them, which we would have thought was a Thanksgiving Day meal. They don't even eat it because they have money now. Some of the kids have money. And again, this isn't about Penn State. I'm saying I'm very close with people across the board. I also think they open up to me because I was a head coach, so I have a respect. They know I'm not in it for the next job, so I have a lot of friends that they'll open up and tell me what they're doing. But there's families. Can you imagine if you have any relative? Can you imagine two brothers in this business? Let's say one's at Penn State and one's at Maryland, and they're brothers, family brothers. Do you think they ever say a word about recruiting or about who they're recruiting or how much they're spending or what they're doing? Nobody shares anything with anyone because it's such a cutthroat business and because you never want to give them advantage that you're going to give the kid 100. Well, they're giving him 150. I heard it from my brother Joe or whoever it be. It's just like that. Whereas it used to be, and I'll stop this because I'm giving you his way, or you don't want all this. But it used to be we used to travel together. There'd be four of us. We'd get in the station wagon. We'd go to Pittsburgh, and by the time we got out there, we decided who each of us was going to recruit, and we didn't usually recruit each other's kids. Now, with social media, with AAU, with Zoom, and all that, it's a stupid word, but the Wild West. I don't have what to say it because it's wild. It just keeps expanding.
Another question. So you mentioned 100,000. What kind of money is that? Like the realistic amount of money that we're talking about? Like if Penn State recruits a wide receiver
Mm-hmm.
or a center for the basketball, what kind of dollars are we talking about?
100,000 if that's what you're contracting, but 100,000 is probably mid-range with some of these contracts. Now we have kids, that could make 30, 40, but we have kids that can make, that will make triple what you're talking about. And for the purist here, which is the exciting part for me, I think the only reason that I'm around, which is really cool, I think, I try to hang my hat on this. If I took 5 people here, and I don't know any of you, but I took 5 of you, and somebody was making $1 million, and somebody was making 200, 140, and 25, and I took 5 of you, all the same size, and we were down at Spooky Nook down here, and you went out and played, and I was sitting there with 5 other coaches. The neat thing for me is all 5 of those coaches would see those 5 guys in a different light. I might like this kid with the 40 better than I like the kid with the $1 million. But since they put that tag on him, everybody thinks, oh, he made $1 million. Imagine the pressure on some of these kids when they get paid that money. Now, I'm not faulting them. They're going to take the money and go. But imagine the pressure on these kids when they're getting paid and people know they're getting paid. And so far, they've been able to keep it kind of under wraps about what kids are making. And then some of them are making up numbers. But that's another part to this, that the beauty is in the eye of the beholder. The excitement for me is for Rhodes to put this team together with guys that they're not all 4-star, 5-star guys. They're guys that they really liked. So you come up and see them play. You'll see them play really hard. You'll see them play fast. You'll see them play together. And you just hope the locker room stays together so that you're really competitive. Because even last year, we didn't have nearly, we probably had 20% of what most of the Big Ten schools had in NIL. 20% we probably had. And we won half our games, or almost half. So you can still get it done if you have the right system, you have the right coaches, you have the right thing. But anyway, please don't make this a gloom and doom. I'm just trying to educate you because it's here. We're going to do it. Athletics is going to be athletics. I just want to make sure that we all keep trying to preserve the integrity of what we know is what college athletes and what all athletes do for kids. Did I miss somebody?